Hi everybody, it's Anne the Purple Goddess. Good to be with you again today, and believe it or not, it's time to turn the wheel of the year again. And it is going really fast this year of 2018. And we've come through a whole journey of different ceremonies, and today is the 6 of 8 ceremonies. We've got one more, and then we've completed the Celtic Wheel of the Year. So we're moving into the dark time. I'm wearing kind of my dark purple clothes, and I'm trying to do some teaching here about the Celtic Wheel of the Year and getting all of us to think about the sacredness of the different times of the year when light and dark are different. And we're moving now into something called Samhain. And here it is over here on my pumpkin. And it's spelled like you would say Samhain, but it's actually pronounced Samhain. And it means the end of summer. So our last 3 videos were harvest festivals. Lammas, where we made bread and a little corn dolly, and then we had autumn equinox. And now we're at Samhain, which is the final and third harvest. And it's the end of kind of the harvest season, and we're moving into, oh my gosh, wintertime. So, Samhain is also connected to Halloween. I mean, Halloween had ancient history, and the ancient history is something called Samhain, and meaning end of the summer, end of the autumn. And unfortunately, in our commercialized world, we've turned Halloween into something that's spooky and scary. And the truth of it is, going back to ancient times, is that this was a very magical time and a very sacred time. So I like to play with the word scared versus sacred. So I'd like you to think about this time of year being kind of a sacred time, and what they say about Samhain, Halloween, is that the veil is thin between the worlds. And this is when we have access to maybe messages or feel closer to our ancestors or people who have died in our life. And so encourage you to think about, rather than thinking about death and having all kinds of decorations that are scary, think about something that's a little more positive. And you can even do this with your children or your grandchildren. So one of the things that I do every year is I create an ancestor altar. And I've got one on my little coffee table today. And I want to talk a little bit about how you can do an ancestor altar as well. Not everybody likes the use of the word altar, and that's okay. Altar just means a little sacred space. And so find a little place in your house. It doesn't have to be a big surface. And the basics of an altar, a sacred space, are the elements of life. So it's good to have, and you'll see the photo that I have here as part of the video. The basic elements are earth, air, fire, and water. So we all have these elements that we can create our little altar with quite quickly. So earth you could represent with a stone or a crystal. I've got a stone that was given to me when I was in Crete this spring. I was on a goddess pilgrimage, and there were lots of beautiful stones. So you probably have a stone that means something to you in your house. So that represents earth. And then air you can represent by having a feather. Or if you don't have a feather, you can put a stick of incense there. And when you light incense, it goes into the air. So incense is another way to represent air. And fire is easy. It's a candle. And then water you can represent by using a shell or just a little bowl of water. So there are the basic elements, earth, air, fire, and water. That's the beginning of your sacred altar. And then find some pictures of some people in your life who have passed that you might want to honor at this time. So on my altar, I've got my mom and dad, my late husband Christopher, and my grandmother, who I was named after. Her name was Anne. So it doesn't need to be complicated. And I suggest that you leave your ancestor altar up maybe for a couple of weeks. I usually take mine down around Remembrance Day. And but it's a way to kind of visit it on a regular basis and maybe there's a message that might come through to you from one of your ancestors. And maybe it's just time around Halloween to sit by your altar and have a conversation with people that whose photo is represented there. We don't want to forget people who have died. They are part of us. They are part of our ongoing life, aren't they? And this is a time of year when we can commune with them again and have a conversation. And maybe there's a message for us. So that's one way to kind of honor Halloween. The other is a pumpkin. And I've just put some paint and put the word Samhain on mine, and I'll have it in my house. And, you know, I usually have a little gathering on these ceremonies, and I'll do a circle in a couple of days. And I invite people to bring a picture of somebody who has died, and when we create a circle, we bring that person into the circle, and each person has an opportunity to talk about what that person meant to them, and it's really a beautiful ceremony to have. So who are the goddesses that we might want to think about at this time of year, at Samhain? And there's two that I'm going to suggest. The first one is Kali. And Kali is an ancient Hindu goddess, and she's really fierce. She's black, she's got multiple arms, and at first when you look at pictures of Kali, you get a little scared because she's got a red tongue coming out. She's holding a severed head in one hand, and she's wearing a necklace of skulls, and she's got this kind of, I think, what do you call it, a sickle, sword. She's fierce. And why we think about Kali at this time of year is that she provides us the opportunity to cut away all the parts of ourselves that are dead and no longer serve us. And this is, Samhain's also referred to as the Witch's New Year, or New Year's, the end of the year. So Kali comes to us at the end of the year to say, just give me all the stuff that you're no longer needing, and let me cut it away. And a lot of it has to do with the ego and false values about how we might get our worth by what we think people think of us, or by the money we have or don't have. And Kali's here to say, time to transform your life and to let the ego go and let the real you kind of come forward. So while she is a fierce goddess, we can give her all the uncomfortableness of our life, and she will absorb it. And in one of her hands, she's got a bowl of light. So even though there's a lot of darkness in Kali, she also can transform us with light, and she's usually surrounded by some kind of halo or positive light. So she's a beautiful goddess to help us transform at this time of year. The other goddess is the crone goddess, and that's Hecate. As we go through the wheel of the year, we move through the maiden, the young aspect of ourselves, you know, in spring when we're out having a lot of fun and it's the lusty month of May. And then we move into the harvest, kind of the mother time when we're full of life and bounty. And now as we're moving into the darkness, we're moving into the crone. I'm a crone. Anybody over 60 is a crone, and men can also be crones. And crone just means elder or wise person, that we've lived long enough that we have a lot of wisdom about life. And so Hecate is the crone goddess of the crossroads. She's often depicted with 3 heads, or in this picture, there's a dog with 3 heads. And the 3 is just a reminder of the triple aspect of the goddess, the maiden, the mother, and the crone. But the crone in this card is standing in front of a tree, and there's a choice to be made. There might be 2 paths or 3 paths behind her. So when we think about this being kind of the end of one big cycle of the year, we're being invited at Samhain to think about, is there a new threshold that we need to cross? We're cutting away with Kali all that no longer serves us. And when we cut away things that no longer serve us, we might be at a crossroads to make a decision about going down a new path. And so Hecate is a goddess that will protect us regardless of the choice that we make. So if you're at a crossroads or a threshold in your life, Samhain is a good time to just step across that threshold and make a new beginning. And you will be protected by this very wise and wonderful crone goddess. So folks, that's the little teaching for today about Samhain. And I hope you have a sacred time. And it's good to have a lot of fun too. But remember that this is a time when the veil is thin between the worlds, when we might be getting messages, when it's time to release what no longer serves us and to cross the threshold into a new beginning. So I've got my witch's hat here. And the witch's hat is really terrific because it has a big cone, and the cone is about the cone of power. And this is a time of year when it's great to have the cone of power. So I'm going to put on my little witch hat and wish you all a happy Samhain. And till we meet again, bye for now.